Okay, we are at 7:02, so I think we'll go ahead and get started. Before we kind of kick things off, I do just want to thank everybody for being here. And some of you have been here every Wednesday evening. So it's been fun to spend the last 7 Wednesday evenings with you. This is the final seminar in our series. So, we've learned so much over the last 6 weeks and will tonight as well. And with that in mind, I just want to give a big, big thank you to Bill Bagley and also his son Scott for all of the wisdom that you all have imparted on us over the past couple of months. I think it's
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I think it's good for our students to know that, this is curriculum that you all present to corporations and in business programs at the college level. And we're just so lucky that you have agreed to share your knowledge with us. So
I appreciate you
thank you
saying that.
again. No, thank you so much. And with that, we'll go ahead and get kicked off.
Are we recording?
We are recording. Thank you for checking.
Okay. Thanks, Lauren. It's been a pleasure to be with all of you this past 6 weeks, and this is our final one. I know when it started, everybody probably felt like, wow, 7 weeks of this, but it goes fast. There is a lot of material. There's no way to really condense it any more than I have. I think what we try to do is plant the seed so that you understand this is coming. This is what you're going to be. And I don't mean this to be an ominous warning, but the fact of the matter is this is what's coming. And you're going to be confronted with a lot of these things at some point in your career. Tonight is really the culmination of all the things that you've learned over the 6 weeks. You've learned how to become a strategic partner, to become a leader, a servant leader. So at some point in your career, and it'll come much sooner than you think it will, and for some of you, it will come much sooner than you can even imagine. I know when people started at Deloitte, first year, I would tell them in your second or third year, you're going to be leading teams, you're going to be leading client engagements. And they're like, that can't be possible. And guess what? In their second or third year, they were doing that. So it comes quickly. So what I want you to learn tonight is that all the things that you've learned about becoming a strategic partner, a servant leader, this is when you put it to work. When you're in an organization and you're appointed a leader of a team or a department, you become a partner, whatever it might be. These are the things that you need to make sure that you're doing to become effective. And it's all about connecting with people. So we talked about connecting from a network perspective. To build your network, you have to connect with people. But when you're leading people in an organization, it's all about connecting with them from a positive perspective. When I was, again, at Deloitte, and I hate to continue to jump on Deloitte, but that's where I spent 20 years of my career. We had a managing partner of the region, Jerry DeBrunner, who was a great mentor of mine. He was a Xavier graduate. He was a Procter & Gamble lead client service partner. And then he was appointed regional managing partner. And all this time he was based in Cincinnati because the Cincinnati office had grown to about 550 people. He went up to Chicago for a couple of years because the region, it really expanded. And so Chicago was the epicenter of the region. But he was one of the top 12 partners in the domestic firm of Deloitte. And he would spend a lot of time in our office. And people were a little bit intimidated by him just because of his position. I mean, he was a vice chairman of the firm, sat on the board. And people knew that when he was in the office, that the man was there. And he would walk through the office every day that he was in there to say hi to people, stick his head into offices, into cubes, and say, how you doing? You enjoying it here? Everybody treating you okay? Anytime you have any questions, you come to see me. He was the #1 connector. Did he need to do that? No. He made a lot of money. He could have stayed in his office forever and people wouldn't have thought anything of it. But he went out of his way to make sure he was connecting with, because he told me at one point, our staff, they're the backbone of our firm. They're doing all the work. They're working 15 to 1900 charge hours every year. They're putting in sweat equity. I owe it to them to come around and say thank you. So was he a servant leader? Absolutely. He was the best. And I learned a lot of things from him. So keep that in mind. It's about connecting. Many people feel like, well, when I'm a leader, I'm leading people. No, you're connecting with people. You can't lead people until they trust you. So when I was at Deloitte, I started in 1987. We did a number of upward feedback surveys, looked at operation stats. I was the first HR leader that they had in that practice office. And I just sensed they were making a lot of money because they had huge clients. We had Procter, we had Penn Central, Scripps Howard, the Third Bank. So they were driving a lot of revenue, but there was something that felt wrong to me from an HR perspective about the culture. So I did upward feedback. I asked people, this is not political. I want your honest feedback. How do you perceive working here? And we did surveys, and we also went to the outside and did surveys of our clients to compare their culture with ours. And looking at the operation stats gave me a lot of insight as well. And I found out even though we were driving a lot of revenue and we were hiring a lot of smart people, we were on the wrong track. So I met with Jerry DeBrunner, and me and my boss, and I said, we need to change. We need to transition from a subservient environment to one of connecting with our professionals. Said right now the feel is that this is like being in the military, and I spent 4 years in the military, so I know what that felt like, where you reported to the officers. The officers didn't necessarily interact with you. In fact, there was a policy that no fraternizing with enlisted personnel. Keep your distance. And we had a flight commander when I was overseas who was right out of the Air Force Academy. And he came out to play on our football team. He was a lieutenant. And he came up to us and he said, things are changing. I'm the flight commander, but I want to play football. I'm still a young guy. So I want you to feel comfortable. You don't have to salute me every time you see me out on the field, right? And so after our first practice together, and we were all a little bit concerned about tackling him, hurting him. But he went out of his way to say, no, we're together. So I took that information back to Deloitte and said, in the military, you're much more effective if your officer, your supervisor, your flight commander is part of you. So Jerry DeBrunner said, okay, let's do this. Do whatever you need to do to make this work. That's when we started the Strategic Partner Training Program. And our attrition rate within the next 3 to 5 years went from losing 30% of our people a year to 8%. Our recruitment numbers improved dramatically. Instead of being at a 46% acceptance rate to the offers that we extended, we went up to 95%. Selected as Fortune 100 Best Place to Work multiple times. The first year of our selection, we were number 14. Second year of selection, we were number 8. And we went from the seller of the big 8 firms in revenue growth to number 1. And the chairman of the firm and the regional leaders attributed the growth of our practice office to our people focus. And then they started copying throughout the firm the Strategic Partner Training Program. And then I told you when I retired in 2006 that we took it out to all these businesses and colleges that I have listed here. So in essence, this is where you want to find yourself at some point in your career. Jack Welch, retired CEO, the late CEO of GE. If we don't get the people thing right, we lose. It's the most important thing in all of our businesses. What happens when people become dissatisfied? They leave, or at the very least, they become disengaged. 70%, according to Gallup, and this is a poll that's taken every couple years, and it's been this way forever, 70% of US employees feel either not engaged or actively disengaged at work. We talk about attrition, then when people become disengaged, like this person, they're thinking about leaving, not about working, being productive, taking care of your clients, selling services. They're thinking about the greener pasture, looking over the fence, saying, I need to be somewhere else. And then they start leaving. And at one point, the practice office in Cincinnati of Deloitte was at 30% attrition. So that meant, we were losing 150 people every year. And you put numbers to that, it's very expensive. Attrition is called the true silent killer, because most leaders in organizations just say, well, you can't stop people from leaving. Well, the fact of the matter is you can. And the cost of attrition, if you have a head count of 100, currently the national attrition rate, these are people leaving voluntarily. Obviously, there are other people who are moved out of a firm for bad performance or poor performance or poor conduct or whatever, but people who leave on their own. In 2019, I didn't gauge 2020 because of all that was going on. It's unfair to try to calculate that, but it was 27%. So you have a head count of 100 and you lose 27 people a year. The cost linked to losing people, depending on what position they're in, is anywhere from $10,000 to $150,000 per person. So the annual cost at losing 27 people a year is between $270,000 and $4 million. If you get to an ideal attrition rate, which should be around 10%, then your annual savings is $170,000 to $2.5 million over a 3-year period. It can be as high as $7.6 million. Most businesses will give anything to be able to drive $7.6 million in revenue. So attrition is extremely costly. But there's not a line item for it. So when you look at a budget, you don't really factor in that, well, in fact, most people, when they develop their forecast, say, well, we're probably going to lose 27%. Why? No. Factor in, we're going to lose 15% or 10%, and then work towards that ideal. Don't just assume because the national average is 27%, that's where we need to be. Attrition cost factors. People will say to me, oh, that can't be right. That's too much money. You talk about losing $150,000. Well, we did a study through our Deloitte Human Capital consulting practice out of Chicago. And at least it's $150,000 if you lose some of your top performers. And here are some of the cost factors they talked about. There's a loss of investment in training. So firms do training, technical and special skills training, management and leadership skill building, continued on-the-job training. Then there's a loss of investment related to advising and assessment, performance assessment, career advising, mentoring, retention counseling. Every time somebody takes time to counsel somebody, mentor them, it's taken away from their ability to drive revenue, to charge time, and so it costs. Loss of investment in recruiting. We used to factor in, it would be $4,000 to $5,000 to hire one person. By the time we did all the traveling, interviews, receptions, office visits, and then if you lose a critical person and they go away, and so you have 2,000 hours of charge time walk out of your organization, you can't wait 5 years to get somebody up to speed. You have to go out and find somebody. So then you have to pay a headhunter. So if you're hiring somebody who's making $100,000 a year, a headhunter is going to charge somewhere between $25,000 and $40,000 to get that person. Loss of investment and orientation. Some of the bigger firms spend a lot of money, relocation costs, formal orientation programs. Some people go out of town for 2 weeks, stay at a hotel in Arizona, go through a lot of training. So cost factors are significant, but the most costly factors are costs associated with the departure and replacement specific to impact on morale of those remaining. If you and I are working together on a team and you leave, who's going to do your work? Me. So instead of working 500 hours of overtime in a year, I'm going to be working 1,000 or more because the work has to go on. Then the clients and the customers are impacted by it because they're like, well, I've worked with Geo for 4 years. He's been on my account. He knows what I'm thinking. I share my goals with him. And you tell me now he's gone? Who's going to do the work? Downtime related to departure, people stand around and talk about it when people leave because it's critical to the organization. Loss of inside intelligence. When you're working with an organization, you are absolutely loyal to that organization. When you leave and go somewhere else, your loyalty shifts to the new organization. And there's a lot of stuff you know about where you worked for 5 or 10 years. Are you hesitant to share that information with the new organization? Maybe initially, but in time, you'll be rewarded for sharing the inside intelligence because it's not inside intelligence anymore. You're working for another firm. $600 billion in turnover costs in the US each year, $600 billion. And the expectations are this will continue to climb. And the shame of it is that 77% of turnover could be prevented by employers if they would just invest their time and care with the people they have. So how do we get the people thing right to keep people from leaving? We start with the end in mind. Stephen Covey always talked about find out where you want to be, what the end is, what the goals, where the growth should be, and then plan accordingly. So a growth plan normally is revenue goal, business development goal, recruiting strategy, retention strategy, and then the one that usually is not there is succession plan. Now, I consulted with a professional service firm several years ago, and the COO called me and said, Bill, we don't really have a viable succession plan, and I have fear that a number of our associates are being groomed to become key players in the firm are going to leave. And I said, well, how much do you pay these associates? And he said, well, we're paying them $100,000 a year right now, but they're not really contributing to the revenue growth because the partners in the firm don't want to share their revenue with them. And I said, well, I don't understand. How's that work? So, well, the way our compensation structure is set up is if you're a partner and you bring an associate with you to work on a client, then you have to split whatever revenue that client pays you in order to determine your compensation. And our partners don't want to do that. And I said, so how long will the associates be in these roles before they become partners? Well, 6 or 7 years. And he said, we need to convince our partners that if we don't help the associates become glued into the client and be part of our succession plan, they may leave. And then, so he asked me to come over and do a presentation to their partner group, which I did. And I told them the danger of not including the associates in the driving of the revenue and the compensation structure. And a month after I did the presentation, senior partners were sending me messages saying, you're exactly right. This is what we need to be doing. I said, where are you doing it? And he said, well, some of us aren't, some of us aren't. So a month after that, the COO called and said, 7 of our 8 associates walked out. I said, how much walked out with them? But we invested about $3.5 million in those 7 people. Now they're gone. Now we got to start all over again. So your partners are going to be 75 or 80 years old before the new group of associates are ready to take over. He said, I know, we got a problem. Next month they sold. They sold to another firm because they didn't have a succession plan in place. And some people think they're going to live forever, and that's a hope It's not a plan. So if you ever work in an organization that doesn't have a succession plan, beware. Okay, retention strategy is all about creating a best place to work. So if you're interviewing for an internship or a permanent position at some point in your career, one question in the interview needs to be, are you a best place to work culture? Have you been recognized? And many organizations in Cincinnati have been recognized. And that's important for you to know because that means their culture is where it should be. What is the best place to work culture? It's all about people orientation. During the orientation, when you're hired, they will communicate to you performance expectations. It won't be a mystery. It'll be outlined so you know. There's going to be open communication and trust between people leading the organization and the line. They will outline a career vision. This is where we see you headed. And they will provide training and coaching so you can move towards success. There will be timely, candid, and constructive feedback. So it's no mystery how you're performing. There's nothing worse than allow somebody to continue making mistakes for a year because people sugarcoat the feedback. And then at the end of a year, you get feedback that's detrimental to you. So you want to know up front, if I'm making mistakes, tell me. I want to fix it. They understand today's more diverse workforce. There's more virtual and flexible opportunities. And monetary recognition is at the bottom of the list if everything else is in place. But it's still really important. And you need to be sure you're working for an organization where the compensation is in line with the marketplace. To design a people-oriented culture, it needs to be friendly, supportive, flexible, and winning. Very few people say, well, I can't wait to go to work for this average organization. I hope they don't win all the time because that'll put too much pressure on me. No, people want to be part of a winning organization. Pride in affiliation. In order to do these things, you need to be connecting with your employees. So at some point, when you're leading or part of a leadership team, make sure that you are connecting at every opportunity with your people. What are the performance expectations? This is normally what performance expectations center around. Customer service, client, taking care of the client. Technical competence is a given. When you graduate from college with a degree in accounting or engineering or MIS, whatever it might be, the assumption is that you're going to be technically competent. But the key is to make sure that you're producing quality of work, that you're a very professional person, that people look up to you, they're attracted to you, they trust you, you exercise integrity and civility, self-discipline, strong work ethic. You're good at team play. You're adaptable to a changing environment, both external and internal. You're key at business development, bringing in new business. That's not reserved for just one or two people. Everybody in an organization who wants to become successful will be appraised around the business they bring in. Are you creative? People say, well, no, I wasn't born with creativity. You're not. Some people have a creative streak, but creativity is a learned behavior. It's just a matter of focusing on a problem or an issue or a best practice, and your brain will figure it out. And then accountability. So everybody needs to be held accountable for what's going on. There's open communication and trust. It's that you and others are open to new ideas. Some of the best ideas come from the youngest professionals in the organization. When you graduate from college, you shouldn't be reticent about providing ideas to supervisors. You're coming out of state-of-the-art educational programs. There may be new blood out there, new ideas. Present them. The worst they can say is, hey, thanks for the idea. No, we're probably going to do it the way we want to do it. Okay, it's fine. But at least you got it out there. Personal issues are addressed. Everybody has personal issues. If you have a good HR person, you can go to them and say, this is very confidential, but I need to share this with you. And the good HR person will listen and give you some helpful feedback. Trading of perspectives. If you're working in an organization where they are diminishing other people, they'll diminish you. Gossip, tearing people down when they're not around, no. It's unprofessional. I was interviewing for a position a number of years ago, and I went to lunch with one of the partners who I'd be working with. And the server came over, and this partner gave this server all kinds of problems. Soup's cold, send it back. Meat's not done, send it back. Never said thank you, never apologized, never anything. He just diminished the server in front of everybody else. And I made a decision at lunch, and they extended an offer to me. And I said, I would never work for an organization with a partner who is like that, because that'd be their culture. You want people who champion others, giving credit when due. Keep in mind that loyalty to the individual results in loyalty to the organization. We had a partner at Deloitte who every Christmas had a holiday party for everybody who worked on his engagements. A lot of people, and their spouses and their children. In the summer, he had a pool party, and he had everybody worked on his engagement, their spouses and their children over, played volleyball, swam, cookout, and people would never leave him. They were so loyal to that individual because of what he invested in them, caring for them. Keep in mind, the greatest human craving is to be appreciated. I'll do whatever you tell me to do. Just appreciate what I'm doing. And then we've talked about career destination focus. Any organization you work with, you want to make sure that they help you with your career destination focus. You are here today. We're going to help you get to where you want to be. And we do that by making sure that there is a career goal out there for you that we agree on, and that we help you mentor you to get to that career goal. And part of it are things that we've already talked about. Who am I? What do I want to do? You've already done that part of it. What are the opportunities out there? And there's a way to explore that. What will I do? You understand the performance expectations and what it means to become a strategic partner. How will I get there? Do a self-assessment, which you've done, goal setting, and a go-forward plan. Then you execute on the plan that's going forward. But your accountability piece is so critical. You need to know from whoever you're working with, how am I doing? Review your progress toward the goals that you've set. And this is how you move forward. And if an organization you go to work for doesn't have this in place, then you just be marking time. Keep in mind that anyone who has made it had a mentor. You hear the comments, self-made man or self-made woman. There is no such thing. Even if the people who are successful didn't realize they had a mentor, they were emulating somebody who was a great role model for them. Training and coaching talent. It's one thing about recruiting individuals, but then once you get people into the organization, you need to train and coach them. And the strategic partner profile, which is what we went through the very first session, personal credibility, image, attitude, integrity, civility, work ethic, and self-discipline. Those never change. And you will always be assessed on those, even if people don't have them written into their performance guidelines. They want to make sure that you feel good about who you are, you have a positive attitude, that you exercise integrity, that you're civil to people, strong work ethic, and self-discipline. And keep in mind that if you don't like your environment, change your attitude of mind, because your environment is a merciless mirror of you. So if your environment seems to be negative or not the way you want it to be, maybe it's you. You change your attitude and watch your environment begin to shift to reflect your new attitude. Then you move into the business knowledge, project management piece. Are you going to be able to make strategic contribution to the organization? People don't go anywhere if they're only tactical or transactional. You need to be transformational, strategic. How we grow the firm, how do we move it forward? Then interpersonal engagement, oral presentation, we spent time on that. Again, 1% of each given generation will self-actualize. 1% of each given generation will be effective at oral presenting. And the other adage you need to keep in mind is those people who are successful are those individuals who decide to do the things that other people won't do. And oral presenting is one of them. It's so critical. It separates you from the pack. Is it painful? Yes. Most things that are worth it are painful. Then managing around time demands and constraints. I know all of you are busy now and you think, wow, I can't add anything else on my calendar or my schedule. You go to college and you'll find out that there's even more to do. Then when you get into business, like I have no time for myself. And that's when we get into urgency, addiction, which you need to stay away from. We talked about that last week. And then today, what we're talking about is leading others towards success. Once you get to this point in your strategic partner profile, then it's up to you to lead others towards success. Timely and constructive feedback, not this. This is the feedback that some people get. But this, strong interpersonal skills, being a careful listener, developing comprehensive and fair documentation, reinforcement of strengths first. These are your strengths. Confront delicate issues and points of deficiency with openness and tact. You don't sugarcoat or hide anything. If somebody's really struggling in an area, you're candid with them. And here's what I'm going to do to help you fix it. You'll become better. This is an easy fix. You just need to know what it is. And then document the discussion. The deficiency targeting would be suggestions for improvement and resolution. Develop a go forward plan and then follow up with the person. Not a year from now, but next month. Stop by and say, we talked about your time management skills are not where they need to be. What can I do to help you with that? Is it getting better? Are you moving away from urgency addiction? Are you able to prioritize those things in quadrant 2 that you need to be doing? Leave nothing for guesswork at the conclusion of a session. When somebody, no matter how difficult the feedback session is, you have to make them understand they need to be on the same line that you are. You have any questions about this, or you see where you're headed? Well, you've got some great strengths here, but if you don't fix your oral presentation skills, you're going to be stuck. And then always protect the confidentiality of the session. You're not beholden to anybody to share other people's information with them. Sample feedback form. I won't go through this, but it's in your PowerPoint slide deck that you can, I'll just go to this first page. Client service, the rating is it's either exceeds expectation, which is EE, meets expectation, which is ME, or below expectation, which is BE. And if somebody's below expectation, you tell them why. Productivity, below expectation. Struggles with deadlines. I am currently coaching to resolve this issue. Okay. Quality of work. Split. Some of the work that this person does is meeting expectation, but some of it's below. Excellent work product. The concern is the failure to meet deadlines consistently, and deadlines are critical. So this person will come away from this session knowing this is what I need to work on. So there are the different skills and attributes that you'd be assessed on, and you can take a look at those on your own time. And in the overall rating is critical, meets expectations plus, a little bit better than just meeting expectation. The feedback provider develops commentary. You can't just give somebody a rating and not develop commentary. Individuals' greatest assets, can-do attitude. That says a lot. I mean, that'll go a long way. Most organizations will go miles with a person who has a can-do attitude, even if they're struggling with other areas, because if they've got a positive attitude, you know they're going to do the work to try to get it done. They're going to improve. So the individual's greatest assets, this particular feedback, can-do attitude, technical knowledge, professional manner and style. Okay, pretty good. Needed improvements, manage time more effectively, understand the critical nature of meeting deadlines, focus more on the topics at hand rather than doing more and reaching out. Other comments, overall rating will be and exceeds expectation once able to more effectively manage time in critical projects, has the potential to be a significant contributor to our organization. So this person will go away from this session feeling pretty good about themselves. I know I can get better. People are 2.5 times more likely to remain with an organization if they feel they are friends with their supervisors. That's another Gallup poll, comes out every couple of years. It hasn't changed much in the last few years. There was a time in the 1980s, power through intimidation. So organizations felt like if people are afraid of me, they'll do good work. No, those days are gone. Some action steps that you should, as a leader, help your professionals to succeed. Counsel with them, listen carefully to what they say. Don't tell them, listen to what they're saying. Then mentor them. Provide specific skill building training, take them to lunch, send a positive memo to them occasionally, look out for their best interest, share business goals and achievements with them, allow them to understand the financials, and then partner with them. Motivate and inspire your team, provide ideas for winning, ask them for their ideas for winning. Again, young professionals have a lot of great new ideas. Always remain upbeat and positive. Even when you don't feel that way, you need to make sure that you're controlling the environment. Share the spotlight. Don't take the credit. Give it to other people. If you're doing a great job, people already know that. You don't have to tell them. But if there are people that are helping you do a good job, give them credit when they are deserving of it, and accept full responsibility for actions and results. If you're the leader and a project fails, you take the bullet. You don't say, well, Joseph didn't understand what we were doing here. No, Bill is the leader of this project. I accept full responsibility because I should have made it clearer to my team what we were trying to do here, and I didn't make it clear enough. Maintain a positive demeanor. Intimidation is no longer an effective way to lead others. You need to allow people to see your good side. There are times when you have to be firm with people, and you do that in private. Bring somebody in an office, close the door, and tell them, okay, this is not what we need to be doing here. Let me give you some guidance. Understand that you can't take the track you're taking. You have to do this. And then shake their hand or do an elbow bump when they get ready to leave and say, hey, I'm 100% behind you. That's why I'm giving you this advice. Monetary recognition that matches the market. What is the market? It's what people earn when they leave you. So there will be people who will be offered a lot of money to go to another organization. You can't always match that. I mean, it's not fair to the people in your organization, the other people who are working just as hard as this individual, to pay this person a premium to hang on to them. You just need to make sure that you're being fair with everyone. If somebody gets a $20,000 bonus or bump to go somewhere else, say la vie, good luck. Hate to lose you. Doors are always open if you want to come back, but I got to be fair to the other 50 people in this department. Specifics. Get to know the people who work for you, their spouses and children's names, their interests, their achievements, their goals. Encourage them toward success. Challenge their technical and leadership potential. Help them when the opportunity surfaces, and empathize when they have issues or personal problems. Support them in their endeavors. Listen carefully to them. Ask their advice in certain matters appropriate to their roles. Keep them engaged with organizational goals. Be sincere, be constructive, not criticism. There's no such thing as constructive criticism. It's either constructive or it's critical. Just be constructive. Exercise unconditional positive regard for them and offer advice when it is needed. Take them to lunch, recognize them in front of others. Critical to do that. Hey, Gio, did a great job the other night. Appreciate your presentation with 2 or 3 of coworkers standing around him. Yeah, it's good. Give a recognition gift. Send them a book or an article of interest, an occasional email message that takes 5 minutes. Thank you, Lauren, for everything you've done. It's great stuff. Appreciate it. Makes people feel like $1 million. Takes you 2 minutes to do that. And we think about doing it, we just don't do it. Champion them for new opportunities. Take them and their significant other to dinner, because when they're working hard, the significant other is also suffering because they're home alone or people get home late. It affects the other person too. And keep this in mind, and this is true now or when you're working, weddings and funerals, be there. If you're invited to a wedding, don't just send a gift. You need to be there. If somebody close to you passes away, if you can't make the funeral, be at the calling. You need to be at one or the other. This is when it means the most to people, and you're obvious by your absence. Thank people often. These are resources around this subject. 3 great books on how to treat people to the highest standard. Recognition and reward efforts. A soldier will fight long and hard for a bit of colored ribbon. Succession plan strategy. You have to have a depth chart, just like a football team. If a tight end goes down on a football team, there's one tight end ready right there to step in during the game. You got to do the same thing in business. If you have a controller or CFO or production manager, you need to have a depth chart so that if something happens to that person, you've got a person ready to step into that role. Do leadership assessment for your future leaders, figure out what their strengths, their competencies are, then help them get better. Have a strategic partner leadership program to get them to the highest point of their development. And don't worry about those who are not selected for a strategic partner leadership program. This is going to vary. I mean, some organizations say, well, we're not going to do a future leaders program because there'll be some people who won't make it and they'll be upset about it. That's too bad. You know, you got to focus on the organization here. Continue to recognize and reward those top performers who were not selected and continue moving them toward a future leaders role, but don't not do the program because it's about developing leaders for your organization. This is a succession planning depth chart. Chief of operations. Who's the successor? Who's the successor for that successor? Controller, department manager, etc. Then develop your future leaders with the training, the coaching, the opportunities, championing them, challenge them with harder projects. That's it. Any questions?
Bill, thank you so much. As usual, this was great and just so insightful. And I always love to hear your stories and your experiences from your own
Thank
careers.
you.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much
it.
for that. Are there any questions for Bill? You can send them over in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask. I've also popped into the chat a link to the evaluation, if you don't mind, before we wrap up completely, popping over to that evaluation and letting us know kind of what you thought of tonight's session and the series if you've been around. So any questions for Bill?
Just keep in mind, these are the types of organizations you want to look for when you're interviewing. You want to work for people in organizations that promote people orientation.
Absolutely. Anything? Okay.
All right.
All right, Bill. So thank you again. And just so everybody knows, all of these recordings are being added to the Career ConneXions website. So if you do want to go back and, watch one that you missed or revisit one that you got a lot out of and you want to see again, the Career ConneXions website is a great place to do that. At the beginning of this seminar, we did mention that we are going to be putting together certificates of completion for our students. So that is in the works. So you guys stay tuned for more information about that. And, if after this evening, anybody has additional questions for Bill or wants to get involved in the Career ConneXions program more than you already are, please feel free to send us an email or reach out and we would love to engage further. So Bill,
And I'd like to offer that as well for any of the students that have any questions around whether it's interviewing, firms that you might want to work with, whatever that we talked about, leadership skills, Bill Bagley Consulting at gmail.com. Feel free to send me a message and I'll respond to you within 24 hours.
That's great.
Addiction, right?
What did you say?
Urgency addiction.
Yes,
you send me a
right.
message, I'll respond.
Well, good. Well, thank you again. And please send our gratitude to Scott for his involvement and contributions to the program also. And this was great. And thanks so much to everybody that's joined us. I know a number of you have been here every week.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah, which is great. And you really are walking away with a wealth of knowledge. So if you can fill out that evaluation and have a great evening. Thank you.
Yeah. Have a great year. See y'all. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.